Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of the Coffee Course. We're going to be doing a bit of an intro to espresso. So, Tom, take us through a bit of espresso.
So this is our introduction to espresso. Hopefully we're going to be doing a kind of a series on this. It's a whole rabbit hole in itself. So we've been kind of talking a lot, Jeff, of how we're going to tackle this. So really for the technical stuff, we're going to be kind of doing a lot of whiteboard stuff, maybe a lot of talking online, and then hopefully for the practical stuff like the dosing and the tamping, the distribution, maybe the latte art, we're going to hopefully be together, depending on how the time goes, but hopefully we'll be together to go through that. As a base, I suppose everybody, just as an introduction to espresso, it's how it's how most people were introduced to coffee in Ireland with people around my age. Other than that, it's your Stir and Nescafe coffee. I know it's probably one of your earliest memories as well, Jeff, maybe, or to speciality.
Oh yeah,
coffee.
I think it's when you shift over to starting to drink a bit of espresso as opposed to other methods, as in just straight up espresso. That's when you're kind of going to dive into that world.
Exactly, it's the first stepping stones to the bigger picture. I suppose with espresso, the main thing about espresso is that it was brought around essentially because before espresso, it took roughly 4.5 minutes for you to make a coffee for a customer. So if you're the average Joe, let's say in Italy, and you were looking for your cup of coffee, the barista at the time, fully suited in his tuxedo, would make you a brewed cup of coffee in a vessel, or it was basically grounded lump of coffee put in either a bowl or a pot or a brewing device they had at the time, and it was brewed for 4.5 minutes. So a couple of engineers from Italy basically had to reduce the amount of time it took for coffee to be brewed, and by doing this you have to increase pressure. That was the main thing. So essentially what our espresso machines that you and I work with, Jeff, are just expensive pressurized kettles to reduce the amount of time it takes to brew coffee. So
it's basically an equation, really, isn't it?
It really is. In terms of us making espresso, it's not an art. There's no art form to it. It's, if we're being honest, it's a complete science. The only art is the latte art side, or maybe how we serve it. There's a couple of artistic qualities in coffee, but brew methods in espresso is not one of them. Lastly, then, before we delve into our espresso series, we have to talk about language. And foundation to our language is we need to be all talking and on the same page, I suppose. So how we do this is make sure we have the same vocabulary. So we're going to be talking a lot about strength, viscosity, intensity, balance, acidity, and with these, we need to define them a little bit before we delve into the series. So there's I suppose a big confusion around strength, what we talk about when we mean strength, and when somebody approaches me in a coffee shop, a customer, they'll ask me how strong the coffee is. In that way, they think about concentration, but when we talk about strength in the coming weeks, we're talking about the percentage of extraction, essentially. So for our espresso, our extraction to water is essentially 7% solubles, 7 to 12% solubles, and the remaining water. And when we talk about filter or drip coffee, we're usually talking around 1.2% to 1.8% coffee to the remaining 98.2, 98.8 water. So when we talk about strength, we talk in terms of extraction. Then when we talk in terms of intensity, we're talking about the perceived magnitude of flavor. What we mean by that is just how strong that flavor or taste profile is coming through. We're going to be talking a little bit about balance. So balance is the disturbing negative features that show up in a coffee. And if a coffee is well balanced, these negative features or perceived negative features will be lessened. Then we have acidity, which is that little bit of sourness we have, or fruitiness. And lastly, we're going to be talking about viscosity, and that's the thickness or the how the coffee runs or flows over your tongue and through your mouth. Using those, Jeff, I think we have a good foundation of how to talk through espresso in this series.
Yeah, and I think you said it's important that everyone understands the use of those terms and how they relate, because some of them, especially the issue of strength, has become confused. So starting from a clean slate and realizing what we mean when we talk about that is a good jumping on point.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to these couple of weeks. There's a lot to it, but hopefully we're going to break it down in an easy, concise way that everybody can follow. Because usually you want to go into your coffee shop and see what the barista is doing behind the counter and know, what he's doing, how well he's doing it, and talk to him about it, because it's fun. It's just another way of enjoying a beverage. So you should be able to talk and communicate this language to your barista.
Great. So we'll probably do is we'll pop some links to notes for the show just to clarify some of those things for people, and then next week we'll get started.
Great. Yeah, sounds good. Thanks very much for having me again, Jeff.
No worries at all. So as ever, any questions, you can feel free to reach out to myself or Tom. So this has been Jeff here from Tree Bark Store.
And I've been Tom from Pangea Coffee Culture.